Good official morning. It's straight up 10 o'clock Central Time. So thank you all again for being here, being online, and for Verl especially joining us from the other side of the world from me, I believe. Verl is with Workman Success Systems. As you can see on the screen there, he's actually the founder of that company. It's a coaching, consulting company, a phenomenal team of people to work with, and they've been a great partner here with us at HAR as well. So thank you all for being online and being willing to share some of your great wisdom with our brokers and managers today.
Thanks, Marilyn. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so whenever you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and turn the controls over to you. Everybody is seeing your screen already, so it's all in your hands. I did just want to say briefly,
all right,
sorry,
sounds good.
I forgot to mention, I am recording the session, and within a couple of days, it just takes me a little while to edit that video and get it distributed, but within a couple of days, I'll send out a copy of this session today, so everybody will have a copy of that. And now really, Verl, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you, and thank you for having me. So I love this topic, and whenever I have an opportunity to talk about helping brokers really maximize profitability and understanding the team concept and how it can work within brokerage, I get excited about it because I see this massive shift. The first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about the consumer and how consumers view teams. You know, in real estate, we've had this long history of being and feeling like we're the center of the world when it comes to the real estate transaction. And the reality is that if you really understood how little time that consumers spend thinking about their realtor, you realize that we aren't as important as we believe we are in the transaction. What I mean by that is that the consumer, the buyer and seller, they think about themselves. They think about their families. They think about the schools they're going to go to, whether or not their kids are going to play sports there, whether or not they're going to be able to be near their friends or their family members, or it's closer to work. They spend all their time thinking about their family, not their realtor. And in real estate, we have this weird belief that that the consumer actually thinks about us during the transaction. They looked at the realtor to provide a high level of customer service and to protect their family's best interest during the transaction. But the thought process that the realtor has to do all of the pieces of the transaction never comes across their mind. It's actually a little bit bizarre. If you look at the business world and you look at all the people we interact with, I'll use a dentist office, for example. When you go into a dentist office and you meet with, you walk into the dentist office, you're always greeted by somebody that's got a beautiful white smile that says, "Welcome, how can I help you?" And then you tell them why you're there to see the dentist, and then they sit you down and say, "Great, how are you going to pay?" And then they ask you for your insurance copay, and they take your credit card, and then the hygienist comes out of the back room and calls you in to sit down, and you get called back. You sit down, the hygienist then cleans your teeth, asks you what the problem is. The next person comes in and does x-rays and figure out that there's a cavity. And then once it's all set up, they have the room all ready. The dentist then comes in, spends 15 minutes, does a quick drill, and packs your tooth and says that the reception will be back out to schedule your follow-up appointment in 60 days. During that whole process, we work with the entire team. And I don't know how you would feel, but what would it feel like to you if you actually walked into a dentist office and you were greeted by the dentist? And the dentist asked you for how you were going to pay and took your card, and then went around the other door and called you to the back room to sit in the chair. It would be weird. And the same thing is true and is changing with the complex nature of the real estate transaction. The consumer wants to have an expert level of service at every area of the transaction. And with the downward pressure on commissions and the disruptors and all the things that are happening in our industry, what is happening is it's requiring us to do a higher level of volume with a lower level of margin. And in order to be able to do that, we have to learn how to create leverage in our business. The hardest part of real estate isn't the transaction itself, but it's the acquiring of the client. And then as brokers and owners, and it's really interesting to have this conversation about it, as brokers and owners, we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years, the margins that used to be the brokers go away from the broker and move to the team leader. And so brokers are having a hard time to be financially sufficient because the team leaders are getting the margins that the brokers used to be by having their buyers, agents, and listing partners on splits. So what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the concept of how do we give the consumer what they want, and that's an expert level of experience in every area of the transaction, and remain relevant and profitable as brokerages. And so understand that the consumer wants to work with teams. You know, millennials today, when they come into the workplace, it's really interesting, and I have a whole bunch of them working for me, is they don't want private offices. We just expanded our space, and everybody wants more collaborative spaces. They want work tables like this. They want to be where they can bounce ideas off each other. They want to be able to have the ability to ask marketing something and have marketing ask the sales guys to come up with a spin on something. And it's really interesting how they want these collaborative spaces because they like the feeling of being part of something bigger than themselves. With things like Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of these community tools that they grow up on, they get into the workplace, they want the same thing. So now take the consumer wanting a higher level of experience in the area of the transaction, this young group of millennials coming into real estate liking collaboration. As brokers and owners, if we fight both people, what we're doing is we're solidifying ourselves as dinosaurs without understanding what the consumer wants and what the people who work in the business want, and they want to be able to have a life. A broker said to me, I was at an elite broker meeting in New York, and one of the top brokerages in the world was talking to their CEO, and she said to me, "We don't like teams." And I said, "Really, why not?" She says, "Well, we don't like teams because, you know, the team leaders are prima donnas, and they keep wanting to get into our pockets on the margins." And I said, "But why do people do teams?" And she says, "Well, they just try and do it because they want to screw the broker over on the commissions." And I said, "Man, that is not it at all. That may be the case with a few teams, but most team leaders, the reason they form a team is because they need help. When you're good at doing real estate and you're out there doing the business, what happens is your clients love you, and when they love you, you get more referrals. And as more referrals come in, you create more opportunities. And when you have more opportunities, you either have to spend more time fulfilling the needs of those clients because you're good at the business, or you have to get help. And so generally somebody will hire an assistant or a part-time transaction coordinator, someone to help them. The number one reason people hire and want to create teams is because they have more opportunity than they can personally handle, and they have realized that working more only causes a higher level of stress on their family. And so the goal of a team is to be able to create a high level of customer service, create leverage where everybody on the team has balance, where they can be at work and really work, and when they're home, they don't have to think about work because there's other people handling it, and earn more profitability. According to NER, there's some interesting last year they did a study, and it came out this year. It said 39% of all agents have considered joining a team. That's a big number. They also said that 80% of real estate teams, every member has a license. And so the majority of real estate teams, everybody is licensed, which means they have the ability to help clients and provide a high level of service. The median number of people on a real estate team was 4. So I want you to think about this. As a broker owner, if you wanted to grow your business in 2020 by 100 people, you could go like crazy and run all your recruiting programs with the goal of recruiting 100 people, or you could create a specific focus on hiring and developing 25 really good teams. And by hiring and developing the 25 good teams, what you'll end up with is 100 new agents to your agent count. And we'll talk about your business financial model and how we make that work. The problem is we're so caught up in doing things the way we've always done it, we can't see the forest for the trees. My theme in 2019 has been Elevate. And the whole concept of Elevate is to create and remove the tethers that keep you back and keep you from growing and really accomplishing something great. So as you look at the concept, and we talk about this team concept today, I want you to think about elevating your profitability, elevating your concept of team, elevating the resources you provide to your team leaders so that you can create an unfair competitive advantage and make it possible for your teams to be able to grow. And I'm always going to say this, while being profitable. And so what does it mean to build a team? So let me share with you the things that when somebody asks me, and if you came to me as a broker and said, Verl, I really want to help my agents be able to build the teams, what are the things that I need to have expertise in? And these are my 12, I'm going to call them my 12 key competencies on building a successful team. Number one is, you know, when and how to hire people. So when's the right time to add what position and how do we hire them? The next one is Lead generation and lead conversion. You have to understand you have to understand, how to generate leads, how to feed the beast, what your numbers are of how to convert them, what your return on investment is with listings. Listings feed the business, and so I'm going to share with you some things to help you do that a little bit later. Same thing with buyers, and then team structure. The team structure is like the org chart. Who's the team leader? It's clearly defining roles and responsibilities and making sure that everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing on the team in order to have a high level of in order to have a great culture, which is the next one, which is number 5, is creating a culture based on really great core values. And so I talk about culture, core values, and productivity. A lot of people, I have a client that I've been coaching for about 2 years now. When we started working together, the one thing he said to me is, he says, Verl, I have this amazing culture, and I know I want you to come in and help us, but I don't want you to screw it up. And I said, great, let's take a look at your culture. Everybody loved everybody. They had barbecues on Friday. They did movie nights once a month. Everybody was really fun, having a great time. And I said, awesome, let's look at their income. And I pulled up their chart that showed all the income, and nobody was making any money. So they had a great culture, but it was a culture of poverty. And I said, okay, so I don't want to screw up your culture, but you're letting your people down if you're allowing them to be on the team and not be successful. So I want you to create a culture of productivity. And we do that by implementing a series of activities, including huddles every day, role-playing, and doing the activities that generate the results that we want. So we practice, and we have to train our agents to be excellent at the business. And then we have to have a clear vision of where we want to go. And we do that by doing team mission and vision plans and goals and business planning. And then this is number 8 is a really important one, and that is creating operational excellence. If you want to have any skill in your business, and I've learned this the hard way as an entrepreneur, as an individual, there's no ability to scale because everything you do well is in your head and it's in your heart. As you start to understand the value of creating leverage, you realize that what's in your head and your heart has to be put on paper, put into systems. Any system or anything we do in our business 3 times, we have to have a system for it. The reason that leaders are unwilling to delegate is because they don't have a system in place that will ensure the customer receives a high level of client experience, because they haven't created the system to duplicate what all of us as leaders do so well. So think about that concept. We want operational excellence and a system for everything we duplicate 3 times. Number 9 is truly understanding what daily success habits are and how to duplicate those activities to get a predictable result. I'll share with you how we do that here shortly, but the daily success habits is we use a tracking system to track the calls, appointments, the conversations we have. I want to track everything so that I make all of my decisions based on data, not on gut feel. We go to shows or conventions or whatever. Some of you just got back from NER, and you walk the trade show floor or you listen to a speaker, they talk about a tool or technology, and we all run out and buy it. We don't make any decisions without going through and testing it and then plugging it into the wisdom of the crowd to find out who else is using it, to find out if that dog hunts. We don't want to take our eye off the ball. We want to look at the trackers, and we want to look at the daily success habits, and we want to be clear, and then we make decisions based on what is actually working, what we can prove. Number 10 is that we have to do a much better job as brokers and owners at teaching our team leaders how to truly become leaders. And a leader doesn't hover around and manage by dictating what they want everybody to do all day. A great leader creates an environment where people choose accountability and they want to be led. So a leader isn't a dictator. A leader is someone, and I'm going to say this, you'll probably hear me say it again. You should write this down, SBO. And what SBO stands for is serve before you have the opportunity to lead. So a leader is someone who provides great service, and they literally pour into their people, developing them to make them amazing. And then because they've created the right culture and core values, they have a low level of turnover on their teams. And then you have to create a culture of accountability. I talked about accountability. Accountability means love, and that means you care about your people enough to actually put some things in place where their behaviors that they duplicate on a regular basis will be reflected in predictable results. If you don't have accountability as a team leader, and I'm talking about your brokerage as a team, I'm talking about your team leaders, I'm talking about your brand, if there's not accountability in there, then your team will fail. Accountability equals love. And then the last thing is that once you get your operational excellence set up, you've created your culture of productivity, we understand our conversion numbers and what has to happen, we can take any team once we have the data and we can scale to any level. But you have to understand what that means and how to do that. And so there's different levels of scale, there's complex technology, and then there's amazing tools and systems that allow you to be able to do that. Now, as I go through this and I talk about teams, I want you to understand that these are the 12 things that I really focus on when we're developing and coaching teams, as well as developing and coaching brokers who want to have team solutions within their brokerage. So here's what I believe. I believe that what you spend most of your time focusing on becomes your truth. And so if you focus on the fact that teams are taking all your margin, then for you, it's probably your biggest problem. If you focus on why teams won't work, then you feel like teams are not going to work. If you focus that teams are the future and you understand the concept of everybody wants leverage, they want to have success, but they also want to have a life. When you understand that what you focus on is how you feel, and how you feel is how you behave, that changes everything. The cool thing about living in this great country and being in this great business is that each one of us have the freedom to choose what we focus on. And so my challenge to each of you as brokers and owners is to choose to focus on giving people what they want instead of controlling who they are by limiting what they can build or not build. If you have anybody who's good at this business, there's going to come a time when they want to grow. And as brokers and owners, if we tell them they can't grow because we don't like teams, we don't have a program for them, then we're basically telling them that we're more interested in ourselves than we're interested in them. And so there's many ways to create golden handcuffs, or what I call additional services to team leaders that make the likelihood of them leaving go way down. And I'll share with you some of those ideas. Now, as I'm talking today, if you have questions, just type them in the chat box or in the questions area, and then I'll do my best during the call to answer your questions and monitor those as they come in. Okay, next. Okay, so number 4, I'm going to give you 4 critical team actions that you as a broker owner can do if you want to have a lot of success in working with your teams. So I'm going to give you 4 specific steps, 4 things that you need to focus on if you want to have a great relationships with your team leaders. Number 1, let's start with this one. I want you to integrate yourself into your teams. I want you to really understand that their job is to build a business and your job is to help them. A lot of times brokers and owners, when they have high turnover with teams, it's because the broker owner does not get involved with the team. They don't get to know the buyers, agents, listing partners, and admin staff. They don't get them to show up at meetings. They don't do all of the things that you would do if they were on your own team. So you as a broker owner, your job is to integrate yourself into the team and create an environment where they love you. And the team member, you know, I'm going to tell you that when people leave, this is probably brutal, and I don't know if you knew this, but people don't leave. They don't leave brands, they leave leaders. And so if you have turnover, you have people leaving, you need to get out one of your big mirrors and go look in the mirror, because they're not leaving because of your brand. They're leaving because of the leader. And if the leader's not fully integrated into their success and hasn't tried to figure out how to help them be successful, then you have more likelihood to leave. The next thing is you need to make their training your training. And let me say that the other way around. Make your training their training. So when you're providing training to your agents in the office, a lot of times teams are excluded. You need to have a focus where when one of your team leaders is hiring buyers, agents, or listing partners, that you're providing training and making their job easier in developing those people. I'll give you a resource for that here shortly. The next thing, number 3, is do things with the team, get involved with the team, do things with them. When you do your client appreciation events or parties, let the team members participate in awards, track their success. Make it your culture to have all of the agents, not just the team leaders, be part of your meetings. I'm telling you, teams sell a lot of houses. And if you do a good job as a broker owner in helping your teams be more successful, they have the ability to drive a lot more business to your ancillary services. So if you own mortgage, title, and insurance, and you want to have your team leaders support you, you've got to create an environment where they know that you have their back and you're supporting them as well. So we have to do things with the entire team to create that culture so that they think of us and the services we provide at the beginning. Number 4 is you got to make them money. A lot of people, and this comes from one of our amazing brokers that does a great job with teams, and I'll share with you some of the growth numbers that they've had. It's you got to make them money. If it doesn't make them money, it doesn't make you money. I want you to think about that. So as a broker owner, if you're doing activities and you're not focused on how to make your people more successful, they're not going to make any money, and neither are you. So the more successful they are, the more successful you are. And so you got to have a business model that is fair and profitable, but you also have to be able to understand that they need to be profitable as well. And so when you're recruiting, for example, you should be thinking, is this agent the right agent for my office, or is it an agent that I should put on one of my teams? When they're recruiting and they're looking for people to join their teams, they should be thinking, this may not be a good fit for my team, but it's a great agent for the office, and we should be working with our team leaders, with each other, to help each other grow. And not because we make more money, but because we want to help each other, because we have a vested interest that each business is successful and profitable. So here's those 4 team strategy actions. Number 1, integrate yourself. Number 2, make your training their training. Number 3, do things with the entire team. And number 4, just make them money, help them be successful, and you'll find that you'll get there a lot faster. Okay, so one of our broker owners in Houston is CB&A Realtors. His name is Chance Brown. Chance is a guy that we coach at Workman Success Systems, and it's been really interesting to watch Chance hit the needle on how he grows his teams. He's grown in 1 year, in 2019, from 100 agents to 193 agents. He's gone from 10 teams to 28 teams, and he hasn't had a single team leave. And he follows a very, very specific formula in order to get that level of success. So what do you need? So what do you need, and what systems do you need as a broker and owner if you want to create an environment like Chance and others who have a one-to-many or a leveraged approach to recruiting? By the way, is this interesting to y'all? Are you getting some ideas of how to think about teams differently in your brokerages? I want to make sure that I'm giving you information that you go, yeah, okay, Verl, this is what I was hoping to get today. So what systems do you need? Do you need hiring process? So here's the systems that I believe a broker needs. Hiring process and job descriptions for every position on the team. They need team training. You need to have a solution for team coaching. You've got to be able to bring your leaders together, your top performers together, and share ideas with each other. Team masterminds are huge. You have to integrate your team members into your office culture. And then we've got to have owners of offices make sure that they're being coached and trained properly on how to deal with and integrate and utilize teams. All right, so how do we do that? So I'm going to start by sharing with you just a few screenshots of some of the tools that we have available to our team leaders. When we started coaching teams about 5 years ago, our focus was we wanted to be the best in the world at teams. And so we had a very, very clear vision. We knew what we wanted to do. And so we hired coaches, and we started coaching a variety of teams, and we watched these teams grow from, $250,000 a year to as much as $2 and $3 million a year in gross closed income. And it was really interesting to watch the development of these teams. But we started realizing that there were problems. So a problem would be that a team leader is so busy doing the business that they don't know how to take their foot off the gas long enough to train someone. And so they would hire a buyer's agent, but the buyer agent would get frustrated because they weren't getting the information they needed from the team leaders, so the buyer's agent would leave. Or the buyer's agent or the team leader would then hire an assistant. They hire an administrative assistant. When they hire that admin, they put the admin in and they say, figure it out. And they don't have a operations manual. They don't have things written down. They don't have things done the way they should be, so that we can't do anything. And so the admin would get frustrated because they thought they were letting the team leader down. The team leader would be frustrated because the person they hired wasn't the right person to begin with, and they're not training them correctly. And so no matter which way they go, there's a high level of frustration. And so we went into the studio at Workman Success, and we decided we were going to solve the biggest problems. And so we created what we call the Workman Success Training Center. Now, this training center can be licensed by any brokerage and branded to your own company. And so you could have your own CB&A training center. Inside the training center, we went in and we decided we were going to create training for buyer agents. So we went into the studio and we created Buyer Agent Mastery. Buyer Agent Mastery is 16 sessions. It goes through building your business plan, your daily success habits, how to get a buyer agreement signed. We get into overcoming objections, dealing with discounters, how to prospect for buyers, the ABCs of lead conversion, how do we convert leads at a higher level. The Buyer Agent Mastery program was so good that we decided to actually go in studio and convert all the content to live course classroom training. So now, let's say as a broker owner, you had a license to the training center, you could then become certified as a Workman Way facilitator. Then you get the ability then to teach live courses in your own offices where your agents can go through Buyer Agent Mastery. Now, the thing here that's kind of cool is we did Buyer Agent Mastery, and then we went into the studio and we said, look, I got all these agents that want to list more houses. What does that look like? So we went and we created a program called Listing Agent Mastery, or SLAM. And in that Seller Listing Agent Mastery program, this is literally built by agents that list over 200 houses a year on their teams. And so they're amazing listers. And we took their pre-listing process, their premium marketing, what they do with social media, how they present in the home, how they demonstrate, how they price a home effectively, how they deal with multiple offers. We took all of those systems, the scripts, the dialogues, and everything that we use in listings, and we put it into a training program. And then we built that program in an online format and in a live classroom. So we have a 10-week live classroom on Buyer Agent Mastery and a 10-week live classroom on Listing Agent Mastery, or the agents can go online and do it themselves. Now, the purpose of me sharing this with you isn't to sell. I don't even have a price sheet or anything for you. I just want you to know that there's resources available to you as a broker owner if you want to have a team focus. So if you provided a resource like this, or you built your own, when a team leader goes out and hires a buyer's agent, boom, you have the training that you provide, they go through it. The accidental success of the program, to me, happened when we realized, and we had a broker, the licensed training center, come to us and say, you know, this isn't for teams. And I said, what do you mean? And the broker owner said, well, if you're an individual agent, do you work with buyers? And I said, yeah. And then he said, if you're an individual agent, do you work with sellers? And I said, yes. And he says, if you're an individual agent, do you need to have operational excellence? I said, yes. He says, so I'm teaching all of my agents the skills that you teach experts in every area of the business, and they become better individual agents because they get trained on how to be really good at it by someone who's teaching them how to specialize in each activity. I thought that was an interesting concept, and now we're seeing that be rolled out all over the United States and Canada. So the last program, and this is probably one of the most valuable things that we teach our clients, is how to have operational excellence. Our Admin Mastery program is the only program that I'm aware of that has 66 sessions on how to create and treat administrative assistants. We go through and we teach them how to build an operations manual, all of the trackers for buyers and sellers. We teach all of these things built into the AMP program. If I have time at the end of the webinar today, I can show you some of those things if there's interest in what it actually looks like when you go into it. But there's all kinds of downloadable resources and things that are available in that training center. Let me give you an example. So I told you about the BAM Live and the SLAM Live and the live courses. So let me give you an example. When you're going through Buyer Agent Mastery or Listing Agent Mastery, you're going to get to the session that talks about daily success habits. The Daily Success Habits Tracker is a fillable PDF, and now it's also available in a downloadable app on the iTunes or Google Play, where we track the activities that get a result. And I'm going to teach you how we use this. So when you look at this Daily Success Habits Tracker and you say, okay, let me take a look at this. Every time you have a call, and the way that we define points is by doing activities that generate results or income. So when you're prospecting, looking for new business, and you make a dial, you put a hash mark in the 1. When you make another dial, you put a hash mark in the 2. When you have a conversation, you turn it into an X. So we track how many dials does it take to have a conversation, and then how many conversations does it have to get an appointment. And then how many appointments does it take to get a listing signed? I have this data on hundreds of teams. They're all going into a database. We know now that it takes between 260 and 271 points to have a closing. And so by tracking the activities that generate the closings, we're able to train to those gaps. So let me give you an example. So if you were working with an agent and the agent was doing their daily success habits and they were having 50 calls but no conversations, what would you do? I would look at the time of day they're calling and what list they're calling from. And then I would make those adjustments. If they're making 50 calls and they're having 5 conversations but not setting any appointments, then we look at what are they saying. So what is the dialogue they're using? If they're getting appointments but people aren't showing up, then we work on that. If they're getting appointments but they're not getting agreements signed, then we look at the appointments they're getting and what they're saying. And so as a leader, what we've learned is by tracking the right things, it gives us the ability to train to the gaps. So I'm able to go in and I'm able to train to the gaps because I'm tracking the activities to get the results I want. And I promise you, when you start tracking these things, it makes a huge difference on the results that you'll get. So let's talk a little bit about competition. So a lot of brokers say that, I'm a broker owner, but I have to list and sell in order to be able to live because my brokerage isn't putting enough cash for me to be profitable. And so I still have to list and sell. But they tell their agents that I'm not going to compete with you, I only take referrals. That whole concept is kind of whack in my mind. And so here's why. Because there's enough business out there for everybody. I think that when you're straddling the fence between being a broker owner and being an agent, that it's not that the competition matters because your agents don't really care. If you're helping them be successful and you're helping them grow their business, they're not going to see you as competition. And so let me share with you the model that I look at when I'm thinking about how to build a brokerage and to build teams within that brokerage. So when you're recruiting, for example, you take someone that comes down the recruiting funnel and we look at them are they new, are they experienced, they want to do a team, they want to be on a team, whatever. We look at them. And then in our brokerages, we have a place for whoever they are. The problem is we put most agents in the same bucket. Rather than just putting them in your office, I'm going to show you how I look at them. So I put an agent in the office, and I put him as an office agent. But as a broker owner, if I also own my own team within the brokerage, and I don't care if you actually list and sell real estate, I'm just saying own your own team. Then you look at the agent, and based on who the agent is, we can determine where the best place is for them. Do I put them on as a showing assistant so I can get them a little bit of money at 25 bucks an hour? Do I put them in as a buyer agent or a listing partner, or do I put them in as an office agent? It doesn't matter. What you do is instead of doing and trying to recruit to the brokerage, you look at every individual you have a recruiting interview with and you find out what they need and then put them in the place where they have the highest likelihood of success. So where do you put them so they have the highest likelihood of success? When I take a buyer's agent, for example, and I bring them onto my team, the way that we compensate buyer's agents is this. A buyer's agent gets 40-60 on the first 2 transactions in a month, 45-55 on the second 2, and then 50-50 on 5+. And so the margin that you used to have as a broker owner that now is going to all your team leaders allows you to have your own team within the brokerage and have profitability again. And your goal is to develop these people so you can move them back over to your office and let them run their own teams and help them be successful by recruiting and placing people where it belongs. And so now you've got your own team that gives you a lot of massive profitability. So let me show you what a team profitability might look like. So if you're a broker owner and you're running your own team, and you only have 3 buyer's agents, the minimum level of acceptable performance by a buyer's agent on one of our teams is 2 transactions a month. A listing partner gets paid 25%, and we want them to be about 60%, or sorry, 60 to 150 listings a year. So take an average neighborhood where we have a sales price of 3%, or $250,000 and 3%, and so how much do you make as a broker owner? Without being in production yourself, just by having 4 agents that are on what you call a team and following the systems that I teach, what happens is it creates a new level of profitability of almost $700,000. You can own one team in each of your offices if you wanted to. You could have partners in your teams. There's a lot of flexibility when you have margins that are available. I don't know about you, but is there anybody on this call that it would be beneficial if you had an extra $700,000 or $800,000 in additional profit coming into your pocket each year? And that's after paying out your agents. Okay, so now we've talked about, and this is a great time. I want to make sure that I pause long enough for you to think about this and ask your questions. So feel free to ask questions, type them in the questions box. I promise you I'll pause and answer your questions. So how do we compensate teams? So we created what's called the Broker's Team Compensation Fee Decision Maker. And the way that this works, let me see if this is hyperlinks. I'm going to go live into this for just a second and show this to you. Okay, so here's the decision maker. And the way that this works is we ask the brokers to put in what they believe they want to make off each person on the team. So I ask first of all, is there a monthly expense that we pay out to the broker, a flat fee on a monthly basis? What's my required contribution from the team leader? What's my required contribution of what I want to make off a team leader? I put my average sales price in. In this example, I use 200, but I could easily change this to 250. The average commission, the number of units the team leader is going to sell, the number of units the team leader, the splits. I put all that information in the green. I fill out the greens. If there's a cap, I'll put a cap on there. And then based on this, if I want to make $21,000 off of a team leader and $12,000 off a team member, it then gives me 3 different fee models. The first one is a monthly fee model. I can charge the team leader $1,333 a month and the team member $583 a month, and that gets me to my profitability number. If I use a transaction fee model, then I charge $150 per month for the team leader and $150 a month for the team member, and then I get $233 per transaction or $33 per transaction off of a team member. If I want to do a split model, then I would charge $150 a month off from each person on the team, and I do a 5% team leader split at 12.59%. This is designed to give you options as you're creating your team compensation model. And so I want you to be thinking about what are the profitability numbers that I want in order to be profitable, and this gives you that. And so this gives you different ways of looking at it. It certainly isn't designed to set the standard of what you should pay, but it gives you talking points on how to develop your compensation plan for teams. All right, so now let's go through and let me show you some of the tools or resources that we think about when we're building and we're working with our teams. So give me a second, let me set this up correctly. Okay, so when you're looking inside of the training center, let me share with you some of the things that I really want to track so that you have the ability to see what we're looking for. So when I go into the Admin Mastery Program, let me teach you how we recruit. So one of the coolest things we use is inside the AMP program, when you look at the first session, there's understanding the team leader's role, understanding the admin's role. We introduce your presenters, but in this program right here, it's called the AMP scorecard. I want everyone to look really close at my screen. So when you, and by the way, I can tell on this GoToWebinar that you're looking at the screens. When you look at the screen in this AMP scorecard, I want you to check this out. Now, when I'm recruiting someone, we call this a success probability index. So think about this. So when you're sitting down having a recruiting meeting, I want to know what the likelihood of that agent being successful in the business is. And so I use my AMP scorecard as a success probability index where I sit down with the agent and I block an hour of time and I ask them to bring their laptop, and then we evaluate all the things they have running in their business. Do you have a CRM? How are you using your CRM? What are you doing with your CRM? So I want to see how all of that's running. And we know if we have duplicates, and then we score each of those activities. Then we look at their marketing. Then we look at their lead management. Then we look at their transaction management. Then we look at their business management accounting. And by scoring all of these things, what it does is it creates clarity on whether or not they have what they need in order to be successful. And in most cases, what I found is that most agents don't. And then we have in the training center, so if you had a training system like this, you would go back to your team training system and say, you know, by joining me, we have answers to all of these problems where you're scoring low, and then can go back in and help you with that. So let me give you another example. So when we're doing transaction management, for example, I click on transaction management, you're going to see an introduction to transaction management, how we manage everything, the transaction management system. So when I go into the transaction management system, this is how I want my agents to manage transactions so I can see that they're moving forward. So when I click on the transaction management system, it literally opens up the thought process on how we think about a transaction. So what I want the agent to do, what I want the client care coordinator to do, who should be doing each of the tasks, and how to set up their folders in Google Drive, what we do in a pending, what we do in a closing. We take them step by step through the process of how to manage that transaction. Another example might be the automation of the transaction. You remember, you heard me say earlier that which gets measured gets done. And so that which gets measured gets done. That's not the one I was thinking of. What I said was that whenever you do 3 times, we want to have a system for it. And so we created what we call our action plans or workflows. And so in this spreadsheet, we took all of the teams, and there's hundreds of them, and we asked everybody to submit their best workflows for what happens in a pre-listing phase. What do you do after you follow up after an appointment? When you take a new listing, what is the workflow? What are the things you want done? Who does it? What days does it show up in the contract? And this is called the workflow. So we put all these workflows in a spreadsheet that are built into the training center. And then so when an agent goes to the training center, they can go in and they can download the workflows and put them into whatever they're using as a CRM. This one single spreadsheet that has all these workflows in it, I don't know how to put value to it, but it's worth tens of thousands of dollars because of the content that's in there. And that's what you'll find in all of the resources that would be available inside training. Now, the good news is, as a broker owner, you don't have to license my training center. You can just drive the agents to go subscribe on their own, and it's a couple $100 a month. There's no contract. They can turn it on when they're training an admin or a buyer's agent. They can just use it, you know, or however you want to do it yourself. All of the resources are there, and that's the key. When we go in and we start tracking things, and I'm going to show you a little bit higher level. When I go into a program like Workbench is where we see all of the production of all of the teams and all the people that we're working with nationwide. And we track things like the daily success habits. And so that daily success habits tracker, when you're working with a team, all of those points go into a system. And I'm able to see that we're doing about 2.2 million daily points. We know where the calls are coming from, how many handwritten notes go out, how many times we're showing houses, how many buy appointments they go on, how many listing appointments they go on. All of that data it shows up here. And then as a result of doing these activities, we're able to go in and see the business numbers that are generated as a result of doing those activities. And so now let me load the business number screen and you can see what I'm talking about. And so the result of doing those activities year to date have generated 5,500 listing closings, 5,900, almost 6,000 buyers closed, over 100 million in commissions, and over 3 billion in transactions. And so what you're looking at right here in this screen is the gross closed income of the people that we're coaching on our team. So 7 million, 6 million, 6 million, 3 million, 3 million, you know, 2.3 million, 2.2 million, and the numbers go from there. And so because we have the data, it allows us to make really, really smart decisions on the activities that we're going to focus on. Now, Marilyn, I see people that have questions that are posted in the questions, but I don't see questions being written. And so how do you, I don't know how I can see people's questions. I want to make sure I get to people's questions and I'm able to answer them.
On the panel on the right, you should be able to see a little red kind of conversation bubble like from a cartoon, or there is a choice in the list of items there, sharing, audio, dashboard. There should be a pop-out that you can open for questions as well.
Okay, there's just, I see questions like in the next to the names, but I don't see people asking the questions, so I don't see any typing in there. So I see the question, Bob.
Okay. And you can't expand
Okay.
that?
I can expand it. I can see I can see our comments to you and your comments to everybody else. I don't see any questions written. So, so Deborah had a question. Bobby had a question.
A lot of people were thanking you
Pamela.
and saying the info was great. Bobby's question is, how much
Oh,
longer do you think commission splits will be around? I'm starting a brokerage now, and I'm going to use the hybrid model. Any thoughts on this type of?
oh, great question. Yeah, so there's a lot of teams right now that are starting to incorporate a salaried agent model. So my prediction, and we'll talk about this next week when I'm in Houston actually, is that I think that the traditional split is not going to go away, but you're going to see it less and less prevalent. It's going to be we're going to have to incorporate new business models because other people are giving the consumers what they want. They're making the transactions easier. And so in order for us to be able to compete, we're going to have to be able to do a high volume, and we're going to have to get our margins in line. And so I think that's a great question. So I think doing a hybrid model where we have a split model and a salaried agent model works. The problem is you got to make sure that you have enough business coming in to feed the beast, and that you're really tracking, and that you set clearly defined expectations for the people that are employees working on the salaried agent model. And so we actually coach a few brokerages who have a salaried agent model that we've been refining over the last couple of years, and they're some of our most profitable brokerages. So if you want more information on that, you can reach out to me, and I'll share that with you, or we can get into a relationship where we're having maybe a stronger coaching relationship. Great question. Other questions that you're seeing? Marilyn, you can be my question answerer.
No worry. That's the only question that we've got submitted. If y'all want to use that question feature, it looks like a little question mark in the upper right corner of your webinar interface. Just type in there anything that you want to send to Verl, and we'll be sure that he gets it, and give him an opportunity to try to answer it while he's live online now.
And I'm happy. And there's really no sacred question. So let me give you a couple of numbers you should know. So as you're looking at scaling any kind of a business, here's some of the critical numbers that we focus on. Number one, every listing you get should equal 1.5 buy-side closings. So if you list as a brokerage 100 houses a year, you should have 150 buy-sides. If you list 100 houses as a team, you should have 150 buy-sides. So 100 listings will equal 250 transactions. Each listing you get should generate between 6 and 8 leads a month. Every listing should generate 6 to 8 leads a month. For every 25 leads we generate, we add a buyer's agent. And so if you had 10 listings that were active, and you had 10 active listings at a time, you're going to have 60 to 80 leads coming in a month, especially if you're running it correctly. With those 60 to 80 leads, the reasons we don't close 1.5 buy-side transactions for every listing is because we don't have enough people working the leads. And so the agents cherry pick them or say these leads all suck, or I don't want to work them, because there's no scarcity in leads. So you would need 3 buyer's agents if you had 10 active listings all the time, just focusing on the leads being generated by those listings. And that's how we get the closings and the productivity out of our teams. So when you see teams doing, 3 and 4 and 5 million in commissions, it's because they understand those ratios and those numbers, and that they're training consistently to those gaps. So they're training to make sure that for every listing they get 1.5 buy-sides, they get 6 to 8 leads, they're tracking every lead, and then for every 25 leads, they add a buyer's agent. Those numbers, and there are other critical matrices like that we track that give us the ability to create scale and to grow our teams. And so as you're looking at having a team or building a team or providing resources for the team, know your numbers and make a conscientious decision to grow. So let me give you a summary slide, and this is kind of how we'll summarize it together. And I'm going to give you a couple of resources just for being on the call today, and let you know that I appreciate you being here. Number one, as a broker owner, I think that you are making a huge mistake by not focusing on teams. And so make a decision to have a clear focus on teams. Most brokers focus on teams when a leader is getting ready to quit. and then they make adjustments in compensation because they don't have the resources, the tools, or the systems to create the handcuffs that keep that team leader with the brokerage. And so they're reactive to teams instead of proactive with teams. And so my challenge to each one of you is to make a conscientious decision to be team proactive. Decide, I'm going to do teams better than anybody else in the world. And whether you use my systems or somebody else's, just make the decision. Integrate yourself into the teams, make your training their training, do things with the entire team, make the money, utilize systems and resources, and understand that there's huge profitability in creating or building your own team solution. If you go to workmansuccess.com/HAR build now, take a picture of this screenshot. I'm going to give you the ability to download some resources. I thought it would be helpful to you if I just gave you some things. So I'd like to give you the team compensation decision maker. And so I'll send that to you with a link to a Google Drive that you can go in, just make a copy of it. You can edit and play with it and kind of create your own structure. You can go in and get a free copy of my Daily Success Habits Tracker. Now I created one specifically for recruiting. And so if you want to add more agents to your bottom line or have your recruiters do it, I'm going to send you the Daily Success Habits Tracker for recruiters so that you can have a higher level of success with your recruiting this year. And then, of course, if you'd like to know more about what we do, or you feel like there might be an area for us to work together, just click on the link that'll come and you can sign up for a coaching consultation, and we can take a look at where you are, share with you what we do, and then see if there's a fit to work together moving forward. And so my focus on teams is clear. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. The brokers that get team proactive have higher profitability and lower turnover, and there's so many things you can do to create that. Marilyn, if there's no further questions, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your webinar. I appreciate it. I love my relationship with HAR, and will continue to give you as much as I can to help your brokers and your team leaders be successful.
And we love our relationship with you, Verl, too. And I've been taking notes. I don't even manage a team. I can't practice because I'm an employee of HAR, and I was loving everything they were sharing. So phenomenal information. I'll give everybody just the last few moments here. Final call. If you have anything, this is a great opportunity to pick Verl's brain while you have him here online. Don't see any other questions coming in. Lots of folks thanking you, complimenting how helpful it was, good information, very educational. So Verl, again, thank you so much for giving up an hour of your day to dedicate to our members and our brokers and managers here.
Thanks for having me, and I'll see y'all in Houston soon.